My name is Lauren Nignon, and I'm with the Collective Intelligence Collaboratory. And I wanted to talk about our idea for a wisdom stack. This is part of what we are calling a rapid learning network, which is a network that is continually getting smarter and wiser. One critical facet of a rapid learning network is how you make decisions within the network. The most important element of decision making is how you are going to spend your budget. And that is usually the issue that breaks up most groups and is the hardest to decide within the network. Decision making can also include elements such as how you're going to poll the members of the network for how they feel about decisions, who's going to make the decisions, who has ownership, and how you vote, how you make proposals, and how you present arguments. So the next facet of a rapid learning network is risk assessment. In an environment, for example, of decentralized autonomous organizations, of currencies, it's actually very difficult to assess which ones of these are valuable and which of these are scams, which one of these is positive and ethical, and which one of them shows dark patterns. So what risk assessment does is actually assess all of these different things, whether it's open source design or decentralized organizations or currencies, and figure out what risk level they are so that people can more accurately decide how they want to spend their time or their money. So this is actually a very important element to building more complex environments, just as risk assessment in the financial world has led to a wider variety of more sophisticated financial tools in trading, because now people can more accurately figure out the risks that they're taking with each financial instrument or fund that they invest in. Risk assessment is an evidence-based evaluation of various patterns, and this could involve conflict resolution, safety and security, or privacy on a positive to negative spectrum. So it's trying to find out, and this could be decentralized organization, it could be a co-op, it could be a currency or a business. It's basically trying to evaluate the amount of risk you take to invest in this or use the application. For example, for a DAO, risk assessment would involve checking out the DAO. Does this DAO have the necessary elements that we know makes up successful DAOs? Like, for example, does this DAO have a conflict resolution system? How do they make decisions together? Does this DAO have a respected method of scaling? What is their scaling algorithm? So these kind of things make up risk assessment. And they're basically finding either positive or negative patterns that we have found through evidence that actually work or don't work in real life. The next facet of a rapid learning network is how you handle conflict resolution. Conflict resolution is starting to be recognized as an important aspect of interoperable networks because people are starting to see that in these interstices between different companies or applications, that is where the conflict occurs. In conflict resolution, first of all, you need to decide how do you choose the conflicts that you're actually going to deal with as a network. These could be about money, They could be defamation of character, they could be racial slurs, but you should think about in advance what could happen and what your standards are going to be as a network for the kind of cases that you feel like you need to take on. So one aspect of this is laying out the facts and the evidence, how you're going to do that. Maybe an outline or a history of the background of what happened, the people's stories who are involved. And then you have to figure out how you're going to communicate the resolution either to the rest of the network or to the outside world. And most importantly, in a rapid learning network, to create a upward spiral is what lessons have you learned from the conflict, and how do you present that history in the knowledge repository so that going forward you can figure out how to fix that problem in the network, how to prevent it, and what you can actually change about the network in order to make sure that doesn't happen again. Another facet of rapid learning network is a good knowledge repository. And this is really critical to a minimum viable upward spiral, because you need a quality database of meetings that have happened, of events that have occurred, of proposals that have been made, conflicts that have happened, and how everything was resolved. So that if someone comes into the network later, they'll understand what happened before then. And so they can figure out if there's a rule on the books, why it was put in place, and what kind of conflict led up to that in order to actually make that rule. Without a knowledge repository, you don't have that kind of history. Without a knowledge repository, it's actually hard to build up a body of wisdom that communicates why you are at the point you are today, or what happened to get you there. A knowledge repository gives you information on the tools, on the platforms, on the protocols that the network uses. And the most important part of a knowledge repository is actually having one. That is the most important part, just making sure that all the information, all the meeting notes and videos and the decisions are there. And the next most important is to organize it in a way that's actually useful for people, say, for example, to orient new people who are just joining. And in the near future, we will see knowledge repositories that are much more advanced, that give much more contextual information about the network, so that, say, a 50-year-old computer programmer will see the information in a much different way than, say, a 7-year-old might. The knowledge repository can actually present information very differently to different groups of people. One of the things that's also critical about the knowledge repository is what conflicts have taken place and how these conflicts were resolved. So what that can do is give you something like a legal library where you have a history of how the network deals with certain events. And that actually makes for a much better investment environment, because it's more predictable. People know if they behave this way, then the network will respond in this other way. One of the most important parts of a knowledge repository is the reporting of failure across the network. If you want to have a network that actually gets smarter with every iteration, it's critical to realize what has failed in the past so you can learn from your mistakes. That's almost the most important part of this system. facet of a rapid learning network that we definitely don't think is talked about enough is crap detection. Crap detection necessitates having a list of criteria that you figure out beforehand about negative patterns that might occur in your network. Sometimes this could be bullying, it could be harassment, or it could be scams that are going on. So you have to have some kind of criteria to assess the risk. And then when something sets off a flag, say, for example, you might have a person that people could go to report concerns. And then you need a process in place to actually take these concerns seriously or not. But you need a conflict resolution process in order to decide, is this event that's happening important enough to warrant some kind of conflict resolution? And then, of course, you have to figure out how you're going to resolve that. So if you don't have this within a network, you can quickly find that things can spiral out of control with things that you probably should have been able to predict beforehand. So you should always assume in a network that there will be bad actors, and you have to try to figure out how people will game the system or what people can do. Don't assume that people will all be ethical. So some elements of crap detection are, for example, trolls that lower the quality of communications in your network, or Sybil attacks, which are when people set up multiple accounts pretending that they're different people. The next facet of a rapid learning network is pattern language, which is all the rage in the field of collective intelligence. And the reason why is that pattern language is a great way to gather up recipes for either success or failure and spread those learnings along the network. People can follow these recipes that have led to success in the past, but they also can insert their own creativity and use the patterns to build slightly different variations that fit what they are doing in their local community or whatever project they're working on. So it's both, it carries within it an element of deep knowledge, but also allows for creativity and new learnings to be inserted. So the great thing about patterns too, they're usually pretty simple, but they can actually be nested into larger patterns, so that with pattern language, you can make up huge structures, all with little patterns put together. A hugely important facet of a rapid learning network is called network weaving. This is largely an unrecognized and unacknowledged craft, but it's incredibly important to make a stronger, smarter network. It's also incredibly inexpensive and very, very effective. So in a knowledge ecosystem, people don't talk about knowledge management. This is becoming quickly a thing of the past. Now, what people are trying to do is to cultivate healthy flows of information and knowledge within a network. And this involves more like knowledge farming or knowledge gardening rather than knowledge management, because we simply have too much information at this point to manage and to make sense of. So it's really more about continuously making the entire network smarter and more aware of what is going on in other corners of the network. And this has to do with cross-pollinating the different groups in a network. So what you do is just intentionally make sure that people from one group are also talking to people from all different groups. So you have these kind of you have people in a network, the cross-pollinators in a network are the people who are very social and who connect really diverse groups, making the entire network more interdisciplinary and more cohesive and coherent, because each group is finding out a little bit more about what other groups are up to. So it increases really exponentially the entire IQ of the network. Another facet of a rapid learning network is the metrics that you use to judge success. And this is actually a very critical part of a minimum viable upward spiral, because you have to know where you are. If you want to get smarter, you have to actually measure that intelligence. How you do that isn't always so clear. It depends on what kind of environment you want to create in a network. If you want a network based on innovation, you want to make sure that people actually feel courage to try new things and even risk failure. You want to somehow measure people's comfort with being vulnerable and being authentic. And how you measure all of these things isn't entirely clear, but it's definitely, these are discussions worth having. In a decentralized network, incentive design is critical in order to maintain healthy network functions. What people have recently been talking about is making sure that people have skin in the game, which means that their personal interests are also designed to be aligned with the interests of the network itself. The incentive should be to get people to engage in the network in healthy ways. So that means to make good decisions and to help each other out and to spread their learnings throughout the network. So some aspects of this are people incentivized to participate? Are they incentivized to keep paying attention and to keep up their engagement? And are they incentivized to participate in proposals and voting and whatever else that the network needs to make decisions and upkeep? So another facet of a rapid learning network, it has to do with identity. And that is what we're calling deep profiles. The shallow profiles, kind of the LinkedIn CV style profiles, are actually not very helpful in terms of understanding someone on a profound level. And that makes it hard to match people to the ideas or people or projects or companies that really truly resonate with them. The CV format is somewhat limiting because it only describes what you have done before. And we believe that if you're really passionate about something, you can actually rise to a level that no one else expected of you. So deep profile should capture the voices and perspectives of others in the network about someone in some sort of compilation to better show someone's essential identity. The critical aspect of deep profiles is that you just want people to be able to show up as their full selves in the network and not be afraid to come to the table with everything that they've got. So you don't want to hold people back. You want to, if people don't have a clear sense of purpose, you want to work with them to make sure that they develop that, and the network helps them fulfill that purpose and feel that they're with the people and projects that really resonate with them and what they want to be doing with their lives. So it really moves people past this just attention economy where they're going from whatever idea or subject captures their attention and they're where they're really supposed to be at. Another important facet in a rapid learning network is matching. And this is really what makes continually wiser network is to the ability to better match people to the ideas or other people, colleague, friends, projects, companies that will really resonate with them. So matching ideally should be more than just a Amazon style recommendation engine of like, oh, if you like this book, then you might like this book because other people have done that before. And really a deeper look at what is truly satisfying to people, where they want to go in their life, and making sure they're matched up to the resources that will actually get them there. Matching, if it's done right, can really make sparks fly as the right people are matched to each other that really have fun together and that inspire each other. Another facet of the Rapid Learning Network is onboarding. And that involves language that's understandable and accessible to make people feel welcome and properly oriented, feeling like they have appropriate guidance or mentorship, that they know where they're supposed to be, where they're supposed to go, and they know where to find any and all resources that they may be seeking. This is often neglected in decentralized innovation spaces, especially ones that are tech-oriented or based on blockchain technology. It's been a continual problem in the peered technology space. So the next facet that's incredibly important in a rapid learning network is modularity. And that's the new word on the street. And it's the building blocks of open innovation. So modularity is a little bit like building with Legos. And the important thing about Legos is that you have prongs on one side and holes on the other. And what that does is allow you to build 1,000,000 things with a small number of Legos. So it gives you a lot of creativity and also allows you to harness the power of pattern language. And just like you can buy Lego kits in the stores, modularity allows you to build toolkits for people to follow a certain recipe or pattern in a way that's been proven successful, and then make small changes based on their needs. Another important facet of a rapid learning network is interoperability. So interoperability has only really recently been recognized as crucial to the rapid learning and improvement of applications and modules. So what this does is to make things in a network, like the organizations or applications in a network, work together so that information or data can flow out of one and into another. This is crucial in allowing people more choice. And if they want to leave an application, they can simply export their data into another one and go elsewhere. The essential part of interoperability is the ability for data exchange to happen. And this basically means, if we're carrying the Lego metaphor, that it kind of mandates that there are prongs on one side and holes on the other, so that things can be easily built, and that any company, for example, could make whatever Lego piece that they wanted as long as it had the holes in the prongs. So this allows for a much more sophisticated interplay between applications or modules, and basically creates situations for a plug and play environment. Another facet of a rapid learning network is breadcrumbs. And breadcrumbs are little signs or signals that you can leave in specific places so that the next people who come along and read these signs know where they are and what's been done before them, so they can just pick up where the last person has left off. And this allows a sort of advanced stigmergy to occur, which is like what happens in groups of termites. So each termite might not actually be very intelligent, but using these breadcrumbs or signs, signals, they can communicate to the other termites what has been done. And this allows them to build very sophisticated structures. Another facet of a rapid learning network and a minimum viable upward spiral is kind of a basket of currencies. The idea of having more than one currency is taking hold. And that is because different currencies incentivize people to do different things. So token-based currencies incentivize people to invest and hold on to something. High velocity currencies encourage people to trade. Currencies can also help the people in a network to express themselves better through signaling. For example, you might have tipping currencies, which allow people to recognize other people for work they've done in a network or for qualities that they admire about other people, say for their wisdom or bravery or good decision-making skills. So basically, having multiple currencies allows for different incentives to happen at the same time. Another critical facet of a rapid learning network is more advanced signaling. So what this does is increase people's expressive capacity in terms of their ability to tell other people in a network their thoughts on other things or peoples or projects. So this could signal their satisfaction with something or their dissatisfaction. So in a marketplace, the most important signal, and sometimes the only signal, is price. And what happens with that is that it's often a race to the bottom to provide the cheapest product, since this is the only signal that people are sending and receiving. So in the absence of more multidimensional information, people just buy the cheapest product. So what signaling does is provide more information and more context about things in a network so people can better make decisions about other people or projects or resources. And finally, the last thing that's important in a rapid learning network is innovation diffusion. And that involves not just coming up with ideas, but figuring out how you are going to diffuse those ideas in the larger society. So innovation is not just about coming up with new concepts, but it's actually getting other people to adopt these concepts and ideas. And that involves making them memorable and easy and incentivizing not just the conceptualizing of ideas or new products, but the actual adaptation of new things. It's really the adoption of new things or ideas that holds back innovation diffusion. It is almost never the lack of ability to come up with new ideas. So basically those are the facets of a minimum viable upward spiral, a network that should continually get wiser as it goes along.